I scaled my agency to 100,000 a month with 13 employees in only 16 months. And today I'm going to tell you exactly how I created offers that over 100 clients have bought, how I hire people to help me grow the agency, and what are the most common pitfalls to avoid to scale your agency to 100,000 per month the fastest.
You grew your agency to $100,000 a month in 16 months,
Yeah.
fully bootstrapped,
Yes.
purely off of cash flow. Tell
Yep.
me more about that. How did that happen?
I have ran agencies in some way, shape, or form for the majority of my life. When I was a young kid, I didn't come from a background where there was a lot of money. I'm from what's called a council estate in Scotland, but that's like the projects or like any other variation of like government subsidised house in different countries across the world. So I didn't have a huge background to that. My parents weren't entrepreneurial. Nobody in my family runs a business. It's only me that's kind of pushed that out there. But when I was really young, it's kind of going back to like the kind of mid 2000s was when the kind of dot-com bubble burst, and it started for after kind of 2006, 2007. What we know, or what I noticed, was that a lot of kind of small local businesses were looking for basic websites to get them from point A to point B. So I started doing that when I was like 14, 15 years old, and my auntie had a hairdressing salon. My uncle was a tailor. Like, like we just kind of pieced together like people that I knew that needed websites, and we started to kind of build them out and do them as we went. And what that kind of helped me do was start kind of figuring out really early on some of the challenges that these businesses have faced for like decades to get there. So fast forward, 10 years of my career, and we come to Kindling. During COVID, I was made redundant from a job in tech as a sales director. We were selling tech platforms to hotels and other kind of hospitality based businesses. I was running a team of 56, 57 sales reps in that business. And then obviously COVID hit the travel industry really, really hard. So I kind of sat around for about 6 months or so. And I ended up getting an inquiry through a friend of a friend who says, we're looking for somebody to help us generate a bunch of leads basically for our windows and doors installation business. So I went and worked with them for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to kind of help them get themselves stabilized, get their footing ready. And at this point, we weren't even generating the leads. I was just there to figure out where they can find them, how they can work them, what they can do with their sales process to make it better. And they were working with some of the other big home improvement lead generation agencies in the UK. So I got a kind of direct line into what it's like to buy appointments or what it's like to buy leads and how people are charging for them and what makes a good lead, what makes a bad lead, how you kind of solve the volume problem, because we were looking for 300-400 leads a week in that business. That's a significant volume to try and get from um,
For a local business.
anywhere, right? It's a really, really, really difficult thing. And we were still a regional business. We weren't looking, national. We weren't even doing that. We're looking at like a kind of like 4 or 5 million people in our potential catchment that we were trying to get. So to generate that number of leads is really difficult. And what that effectively kind of gave us over time is it gave me a really good grounding to start Kindling, because I knew from the inside out where the problems lay and what the customer was expecting, because I was literally in that boat myself, trying to figure that out, and banging my head against the same walls that they're banging their heads against, trying to figure out how they take it to the next place. So I was there for a few months, and then I had the idea. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go all in on Kindling. We're going to do this thing, and we're going to do it on a commission basis, because one of the big complaints that I was facing was that I was constantly paying out retainers and huge spends on things that just wasn't performing. And I'm going, you know what, I wouldn't mind paying that money if it meant I was guaranteed to get something back off of it. But I'm currently getting nothing. I'm still paying that cash, and there's just a huge hole in the bank where we previously had that money squirreled away. So I thought of the commission angle. We went pretty heavy on the commission angle to start with, and we acquired our first customer 4 days after launching our first ads. That customer paid us an onboarding fee of £2,000. I had spent £172 of my own cash on ads to get that first kind of couple of leads through. First one converted with 2k in the bank, and from there, that's what literally boosted the whole business. That first 2k order came in for videography and all the rest of the stuff, and to get them set up and ready to go. And that £2,000 is now what scaled Kindling to where it is. Everything else has come from cash generated inside Kindling to boost us up there. Across that kind of 16, 17 month period, we now have version on 13 full-time staff, a further kind of 7 freelancers and contractors that we use for videography and content and filming and all of that kind of stuff. And consistently, let's say, pulling that kind of 70, 80K a month without much of a worry, fairly consistently now.
So that's a very interesting business model that you rolled up for us in here. Let's break down the economics maybe
Yeah.
to kind of figure out how you got from getting this first client to actually how many clients are you managing right now?
122. Some of them are seasonal, but 122 all in.
122 clients in
Yeah.
a span of basically 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Just absolutely fantastic. And for each of them, it's a good deal because they're
Yeah.
only paying you when you're delivering results for them. Maybe let's start from the back. How are you managing your own capacity? Because that's the probably the craziest number of clients that I've heard for like a
Yeah.
13 people
The
staff.
team.
How are
The
you doing
team are
all of it?
everything, right? It's the team around you that's important. And I don't hide it from my clients. I actively say that. In the rare occasion that I do sales calls these days, I've got a sales director and a sales team that handle that part of the business for me. But when I do those calls, my first thing to them is that I'm not a marketer. I'm not from a marketing background. I'm not the guy that's going to build your ads. I'm not the guy that's going to do all that stuff. What my job is to find out where the problems are in your business and how you're set up so that we can understand what kind of lead flow you need, what type of leads you need, because not all leads are created equal, and essentially what that end goal is for that customer. So to kind of walk it back and how we're managing that is that we've built the team from the ground up to manage that with us. We've brought in the right people with the right set of skills to come in and essentially help us build the business as it goes. So the first hire we made, it was actually my wife. She is currently on maternity leave because she's about to pop with her second kid. But
Amazing.
uh,
Congrats.
but her job was a lot of the kind of admin side and getting access to things and the onboarding, which eventually her role evolved into an onboarding manager. Because we deal with such a high volume of sales and new contracts for the business, we need somebody to be looking at that constantly and making sure that from the minute they're ready to get on with us, we can make that period as short as possible to get them from point A to point Z, and actually being live. The second hire we made was a salesperson, which sounds really counterintuitive and it would scare a hell of a lot of agencies away from that. But what it allowed me to do was get myself out of the sales of the business and get into the operational part of the business, not worry about revenue, not worry about new contracts, not worry about growth, but get me focused on how do we then take these clients from where they are today to the end goal that we've already established with them and start to kind of build that and shape that as it goes. We then brought on a really quick bout of employees around video editing and kind of creative production. We brought on a couple of media buyers in the ad management team. We used that cash to also fund somebody to help run our kind of landing page side of it, where we have the Perspective stuff in place. We also have Go High Level as a CRM platform that we commission for the vast majority of our customers. We need somebody to help build that and manage that as an entity. And when you've got those people in place, it frees guys like myself up to do what we're actually good at. I'm not good at delivering work. I'm not good at working to those kind of deadlines. That's not where I'm best at. Where I'm best focused is how do we take us from where we are today to the next level, and how do I continually manage that across there. So in a long way to answer your question, how did we get here and how do we manage that? The team are everything, and it's something that I think scares a hell of a lot of business owners is hiring people. But you can't do it yourself. It's just physically impossible. There's not enough of you to do all of this stuff, even if you're managing 15, 20 clients. It's far, far, far too much for an individual person to give them the right time and attention that it takes to actually consistently build a lead generation and sales funnel that can consistently drive revenue. The lucky bit, or one of the things that helped keep my feet to the fire and focus me on that growth, was that we don't get paid until they're selling stuff. So I need the best people in place that can manage these things, that understand what they've got to do, that can execute on that, so that we can actually generate the cash we need to not only one, float the business and keep it there, but to grow it and create the profit that we need to reinvest and go again.
Look, Cameron, I would love to talk to you about hiring and the incentive side of the business, and we will get there. Before we
Yeah.
do, the last part that I would love to cover from the like business model structure side. You said your experience comes from being a sales director, comes rather on the sales side rather than the marketing one. I've
Yeah.
seen many agency owners are focusing on the top of the funnel or upper in the funnel, you could say, types of services where they're just focusing on creating the creatives, media buying, and getting leads But after that, it's basically up to the client by how successful they're going to be. But still, I think every business on the planet is going to agree. All for almost every business, with a very small caveat for VC funded businesses where the play is enterprise value. For most businesses, the play is to get more revenue to actually
Yeah,
close these clients. And so your specialization comes from knowing well the bottom part of the funnel, how to actually convert these leads into revenue. And
yeah,
you took that approach and basically got other people to do the more top of the funnel stuff while you were focusing on that.
yeah.
How do you think this played a role in you acquiring maybe not acquiring in so many clients, but actually in you making your clients successful along the way, understanding their business?
I think it's like absolutely pivotal. What we've essentially done is we've productized my 12, 13 years knowledge as a salesperson, sales manager, sales director, head of business development type roles, and productized that into a set of knowledge for our clients. And went a little step before that and made sure that for me, and I don't want this to sound arrogant or anything like that, but generating leads isn't a difficult thing to do. You have to give people something that they want in turn for their data. That is that's lead generation. There's nothing more to it, nothing less to it. You can spice it up with whatever you want and you can talk it back down, but fundamentally your job is to take that person from not trusting who you are to trusting who you are and giving you their data to engage in some kind of sales activity. That for me is generally always been quite an easy task to do, an easy thing to strategize. It's just around why do our customers want the thing we want? How do we entice them? And then how do we show so many of them that we're guaranteed to generate abundance of leads out of there? So that bit was always relatively simple. The sales bit was the bit that was always missing. And when you speak to customers, particularly in home improvements, which is the kind of main industry that we service, they typically feel one of three things or all three things: that they don't understand their marketing team, whoever that be, in house or external, and what they're actually doing on the accounts. They're not overly happy with either the volume or quality. It's one of the two, always inside there, or they're getting nothing back at all out of there. There's a great book by a person called Austin Kleon called Steal Like an Artist. And it's essentially how everybody has constantly evolved on everything that's come before. Particularly in our industry, most people don't seem to have evolved. Windows and doors, we still see people running adverts for, 6 windows and 1 door for £2,000, and nobody believes that, right? And a lot of people think that generating these leads is the hard bit, but it's not. What you've got to do, let's say, is give them something that they want and take that back. So some people entice that with huge discounts and things that look too good to be true, and then they trust the salesperson to go in and do that and walk back from there. But the problem they're or putting onto the customer is that they've got to have a hell of a sales rep to walk somebody up from expecting to spend £2,000 to spend £8,000 in that individual meeting. That's a hell of a job to go and do. So what we done was we kind of worked it back the way and went, right, we can generate leads, that's fine. Let's solve this bit now. How do we get them to take these leads and make sure we are teeing up their sales guys so that they're well set up to take it from here to there? How are we setting up their team to go and do that? And that's the bit of the knowledge that I've brought to the table beyond the kind of growing the business and building it, is building sales teams, building sales motions, building sales structure around getting somebody to take them from point A to point Z and parting with their cash is what I know. So we've essentially productized that bit of it. The lead generation is the kind of add-on at the top of it that's really useful, really valuable. You can't do this bit without that bit, right? You need the lead generation in order to actually do the sales side of it. But the difference in what we've done and how we've made our clients successful is we've worked from the sales side of it back, not from how many people can I get to fill out this form because the client wants 50 leads this week. It's more around the client wants £50,000 in sales this week. Right. So what's their average lead to appointment rate? What's their average cost per appointment? What's their average sale rate? How are they converting? Can we then plug that in, work out a cost of acquisition, and give them a figure that they're going to have to spend in order to go and hit this? And everything with Kindling starts with the sales goal, because that's how you should be instructing any marketing business to work for you. Is I want to make X number of pounds, dollars, euros in sales. How do I achieve that? Should be the question they ask, and we should come back with a strict answer of here's your data, here's what you've done, here's what you go and do. It's never really about ad content and copy is really important in what we do. Let's not get that mixed up with anything. And how we capture those leads is equally important, which is why I'm sitting chatting to you guys, because Perspective gives us a great way to do that. It's not that lead generation is not important, but I think too many people focus on the wrong bit of that. And the minute that form's filled out, they just go, "We've done our job," but have you? um,
Mm, right, right.
that's the bit that allows us to do what we do on the scale that we do, is making sure that we're focused on that sales side.
Hey, thanks for hanging on. Because you're watching this episode of Perspective Talk, we got something special for you. You can get a 14-day free trial of Perspective by clicking on the link in the description below. That's linked in the description below to grab your 14-day free trial. Now let's get back to the episode. I think that's a frame which is really irresistible as an offer to any business, really, because what you're focusing on is literally how much money they're going to make at the end of the day. Not any proxy metric, not anything in between. It's literally like, hey, let's work out how many customers can you actually service in that time period. Let's work back what you're gonna need
Yeah,
to
like
get there,
that's
essentially.
honestly all of it in one piece, and it's the thing that too many people miss out on, because it's the one thing that the customer actually cares about. They don't care about your hook rate. They don't care about your frequency. They don't care about your CPM. In fact, I have a customer right now who spends around about £15,000 a week in ad spend running lead generation through us. I don't think he knows what a CPM is. um, he
Doesn't
doesn't
need
care.
to.
Doesn't care.
Yep.
They just don't care. What he cares is that the money we tell him is going to go into that account goes into that account at the time it goes into it. And that's what our value is to him. It's not about all of the metrics and all of the vanity things that you can kind of stand beside. And those are tools that are used internally for an agency to gauge how well something is doing or what that thing is doing. But the outcome should be the only thing the client cares about, and it should be the only thing you really communicate to them.
All right, beautiful. Sales. Cameron, talk to me about sales. What's one thing that most people get wrong about selling that you know from your experience?
It genuinely, that's where it starts with the lead generation. I think that's where most of them get it wrong, is that they set unrealistic expectations, or that they are beefing up numbers to give somebody to come in to try and start from lower than where they think it's going to go, and they try to walk it up. That for me is where most people kind of fail in sales, is at the start of it. There's a lot deeper problems that exist in there around discovery and understanding what somebody actually wants to achieve with you, which for me, again, I'll go into this on a deeper level, but discovery is where your wholesale is set up, and it's where your wholesale is either set to succeed or where it's set to fail. If you know the guardrails that person is coming into the situation with and what they're trying to achieve and what's going to help them make that decision, you've given yourself the best chance of success to go down that corridor and close all those doors they can walk off from and walk back out of there with your big bag of cash on your back, feeling like you've done your job. If you fail the discovery side of it and that doesn't do what it's meant to do, you don't know what the customers expect and what they're actually renting this on, how they're planning to move this forward, and what their decision making criteria is, you're never going to get that sale. Or in fact, I'm talking nonsense. You will get that sale, but you're going to get them at a really inconsistent rate. Consistency in sales is this strange thing that nobody can really quantify, or I personally have not seen any quantifying metrics on it. I'm sure somebody somewhere will have a quantification metric of how consistency in sales really matters. But what I mean by that is that repeatability and consistency is everything. So we know that every week we open the doors at Kindling, we need to be speaking to at least 15 new clients that week. If we have 17 or 18 booked in the diary, which is a very typical week for us, then we know that 3 or 4 of them are going to drop off and reschedule. We know that we're going to be able to sit between 14 and 15 of those. And we know that out of 14 or 15 of those, we are going to collect somewhere in the region of 3 to 4 contracts out the back of that. We typically target 12 new onboardings a month as a business, and we typically hit that consistently. And it's only because that we have the consistency in our approach, the consistency in our numbers, and the consistency in everything that we do on the discovery level allows us to really quickly bring somebody through from not knowing who we are and seeing an ad with my face on it, telling them something about what we're doing, to paying us some money and coming on board with us and starting their process of going live. That whole thing typically takes about 4 days with us. It's not a long sales cycle. It's not a confusing piece. It's about being the bit of the jigsaw that they need and making sure that we can slot in there to go and do that. But the consistency and knowing the numbers that you need to achieve and being able to hit that, and the repeatability in the process is everything to get there. And that's kind of where we come into it, is it's just a constant repeatable process. What are you looking for? Where do you need it? What areas are you trying to service? What have you tried so far? Why has it not worked for you? What do you really want out of this? How much are you willing to invest to get that? Let's go and have a look at it. Basically,
Absolutely.
is where we go. And if we need to know anything else, we'll get that throughout there. But those questions have to be answered in that first 15-minute discovery conversation with that client before we even show them any of the stuff we do.
I really like the answer that you gave, which is basically that's where it all starts at the top of the funnel. So actually, people that are getting through, but then you pivot it into actually we're getting this many people through because we want to know our final numbers and we're working back our numbers, same as we're doing for our clients. And so we need to know that hey, these many people need to come through. We're gonna close that many of them. We're gonna talk to them about the same thing over and over again, and some of them are gonna come through. And that's how I got to over by now, as you said, over 100 clients, over 100,000 a month in revenue. And so I'm trying to make it also actionable for some of our
Yeah, of
listeners who maybe have their agencies, they got to like
course.
10, 20, 30K a month. What does it take it from like 20, 30K a month to 100? What's the biggest thing that you've
Like
seen?
dedicated resources for me is everything in there, and that's where most of these guys kind of fall over. Right, I know what a typical day looks like for me. So the business is one part of my life. The business doesn't rule my life, and I've been really quite strict on that. I have a young family that I need time to be there with. I've got a lot of very wealthy people that I've known from my past lives, and every single one of them have always told me to. The one thing they regret is not spending time with their kids when they're young. You've got little kids for 4 or 5 years, like you don't want to miss that. So, the business is kind of one part of my life, and I keep it within that. And for me to be able to run a very busy agency, grow that agency, recruit people, bring in other people, you need to have dedicated resources to allow you to do that. Otherwise, you will just go insane. And if you can do it, bash on, but I certainly can't. Yeah, and I've not met anybody that can yet. Like, there's a reason businesses employ people. It's because it makes the whole thing easier and repeatable that can be done. So for me, like the actionable point, if you're sitting about 20, 30K a month in revenue, you really need to have, and you're really planning on growth, you need that at least a basic sales setup with dedicated resource in there. And I mean this in the nicest way possible. Don't buy into the whole 100% commission based closer that messaged you on Instagram, because the chances are they're not very good, and
So
that's why
many
they're
of them.
looking for a job. Like, I get hit up by them all the time. I've never even entertained a single one of them, and that's not for any reason, but sales and sales recruitment I know inside out. The 100% commission only thing is just going to burn you before you get there. Like, find somebody with 2-3 years experience in remote sales, something like somebody in technology or in a SaaS company previously to that. You are going to have to spend a bit of cash to get them in. Don't be afraid to release some equity into their side as well to give them a little bit of buy into the business. But get somebody in that sales chair full time, and make sure that you're not bringing somebody in who's a full stack sales rep. In my opinion, a full stack sales rep that generates leads, closes business, and manages business never exists. It's too many things in one stack for me. You need to have people in their, I don't want to say pigeonholes, but pigeonholes, right? You need to have people in their box that do the thing in their box
Yep.
and do that thing really, really well. So for us, we have a guy called Tony, who is my sales director. He looks after the new business revenue into the business. And his job is to manage the kind of team that sits below him and make sure that we're hitting that target alongside sitting demonstrations and kind of closing calls with that new business pipeline that comes through. Tony, as I say, was our third hire. He had to be our third hire because we needed to grow the business quickly, and I couldn't put all my time and effort into there. So the really backwards thing was to bring that in early. Around November last year, October last year, we brought in a guy called Kurt, who is our SDR, or our kind of appointment setter, which some people might brand it as. Kurt's job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, is to rinse our CRM. That could be new leads, that could be old leads, that could be referrals, that could be whatever it is. But his job is to make sure that every single day we have a fresh batch of leads, whether we've spoken to them before, they're brand new in there from our ads guys, that they are booked into our calendar to go through. His job is to also qualify out anybody who would be a waste of time at the end goal of actually sitting and speaking to us. Because if we were a retainer based business, and I'm not saying that people who run retainer based businesses don't care if their clients sell, obviously they do. They want the longevity of revenue, they don't want the churn that comes off of that. But for us, it is literally life or death, whether if they sell or not. Like they have to come on and do that. So we've got quite a particular set of clients that we acquire, and quite a particular set of people that we'll bring through the business. So his job is to qualify that out, and then book it with Tony. And then Tony's job is to jump on and take the really kind of technical part of the sale around where are you trying to go, and all of those questions that I kind of rhymed off earlier. His job is to take them to the next level. That setup, I mean, listen, it does cost us a little bit of money to have that there, and we spend, 3, 4K a month on leads to get them to that point, and ad spend to get them there and keep them filled. But that consistently, and I mean consistently, pays for itself time and time and time again. While I'm not going to say grow the business on autopilot. I'm sure you can use that as a hook somewhere. But you
Of
don't.
course.
It's not going to be on autopilot, but it's going to take it away from you and let that kind of continual piece just run on that side to grow it. So when you're looking at that and you've got a bit of revenue around the business, you're doing that 20, 30K a month. If you don't have a full time sales resource and you want to grow, because some people just are happy with a business at that level, that's the first place I would look to do it, is get rid of that sales side and don't buy it. I said the 100% commission only stuff, never buy into it. It's not great, especially if they reach out to you on Instagram. That's just silliness. Go and find somebody and deal with it properly. Somebody who knows how to sell remotely, who knows how to deal with that. And your business will change faster than you can cope if you get the right person in the right place with that.
Right. Amazing note take on the appointment setters. But let's talk about how to hire well then. Not hire these guys, but instead hire the people that actually will
Yeah,
help you grow the business. It seems like it's kind of the reverse pipeline, right? Each business is
yeah,
really doing two sales, selling customers and then selling people. Walk
yes.
me through your hiring funnel, basically from where you're getting the leads from, what's the process for closing them, and then we'll
Yeah.
talk about actually how it's working out with them.
I'm really lucky that I've been exposed to a lot of hiring in my life. Luckily, that was when I was an employee of other businesses and I didn't waste my own money bringing in the wrong people. But you are going to have to kiss a few frogs to find the right one. I typically try not to do a lot of interviews for the business because, personally, for me, I'm what we call in Scotland a soft touch. I like to be friends with everybody. I like everybody to kind of come in and, oh, you've not got a job, come work for me. I'll keep you. We'll be able to do it together. And that obviously doesn't always work. So for me, the whole process for us has been built from the ground up as fail and fail fast. So make decisions quickly. If it's not right, move on to the next one. That extends to our hiring process to a degree. We are very quick to hire. We are very quick to fire if it's not right on the other side of it. Luckily, so far for Kindle, and I've kind of given myself a little bit backtracking here where I've said I'm not very good at hiring. We have only had one employee leave us over the last 16 months, 17 months that we've been trading. So,
It's
and
pretty
that
good.
they just weren't working out. I hope they're doing well, but they didn't work out for us. The rest of the guys have stuck really well, and I think the thing about making them stick is one, making sure they're looked after. Like cash, obviously, is everything they look for. Like, don't do the whole pizza party thing. Don't do the whole we're a family thing. Like, just pay the guys cash. Like, that's what they're here for. They're employees. They're here to be paid. Like, if they wanted to do this, they'd go and do it. They're here to be paid and paid well for what they do. The second thing is tie their bonus structure to profit. I've never understood why people tie bonus structures to anything other than profit, because you're rewarding the wrong thing. Maybe if you are a large VC backed business, you can look at rewarding based on number of demonstrations booked or number of discovery calls that you've booked and all of that kind of piece. For me, that's never really made sense for a business like our size that operates on profit. That's what allows us to pay our staff wages. That's what allows us to pay for the office space, allows us to reinvest in the business. It allows us to do all the things that we do. So everybody in Kindlen's bonus is tied to the profit the business makes. That can be paid on a quarterly, biannually, or annually basis, depending on which part of the business you're in and what you do. But everything we do is tied to a bonus structure, and that bonus structure is tied to the profit of the business. If the profit isn't there in the business, there is no bonus. That typically means that people who are motivated by money, which is literally every employee in the world, because they wouldn't be doing it for another reason, um, you are rewarding them for putting profit in your account. And sometimes that can mean some really juicy bonuses that those guys earn. And it is, don't get me wrong, I love all my team. It is sometimes painful to pay that out. But to see that going back out of the account is sometimes painful, don't get me wrong. But it's such a great motivator for the team to be focused on one common goal. You know, when you go into corporate consulting, you'll hear words like North Star metrics, things like that being flown around. The only thing you got to focus on in a business of this size is profit. The profit's not there, you're not doing the job properly, and therefore that person has to deal with the consequences of that, which is no bonus inside there. So, in terms of hiring and doing that piece, a huge amount of experience goes into that. For me, the only thing I can tell you is hire quickly and fire faster. If they're not right, they're not right, and you've just got to deal with that and move on to the next one. The second bit about retaining and keeping staff is really about giving them an environment in which they can do the one thing they want to do, which is earn the money they need in order to have the life they want to live. You can reward that in whatever way you want, but money is typically the reason that an employee comes to work for you. People will say that they want to enjoy a place where they have, interesting work and they do these things. Absolutely. If you've not got that, then what are you doing? You're an agency. You're meant to have interesting work. That's the whole point of this stuff, is that it's creative and cool and funky. Like, like everybody has the interest in work. You've got to have a good environment for them. Otherwise, people will leave. Like, all of those things are prerequisites. But in terms of actually keeping them there for a long time, cash is king. And it really puts it on the right thing and the right level foot. And if you're looking at that on a profit base, there's no better way to do.
Very interesting, and I guess ties back to basically this like system thinking
Yeah,
of what incentive are we going to align everybody in the company towards. It's like, well,
yeah,
the business needs to make profit, then the business pays all of us, and then everybody's going to be happy. And so,
yeah,
actually, so you're saying you're not just paying your employees in roles that are directly bringing in revenue, but also on delivery roles or like
yes,
backend office, everybody's
yeah,
getting share of the
yeah.
profit. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. Like, and, we're not giving away like half of our profit and like that. Like, we
Yeah,
give away
of
a
course.
relatively small percentage of that, but the type of business we are, and because we work on the commission basis now, we've not been trading for 4 or 5 years. I can't be giving you 4 or 5 years numbers, but this year, for example, we've done really, really well. The guys have worked really hard. I've nearly put myself in a grave getting to where we are today, but we are at a point where. Um, the bonuses this year are considerable. And the guys are all extremely excited about what that's going to do for them and allow them to go and do and move from. And it means that, we don't do overtime. We don't typically work late. We don't typically come to work early. We're usually a kind of pretty strict 9 to 5 business, if I'm being honest with you. Besides me, I'm typically work from 7 p.m. onwards once the kids are asleep. But the rest of the guys typically kind of stay within that kind of 9 to 5 remit. Um, and and yeah, like, I don't really see a reason why they shouldn't get bonuses like everybody else. Their job is just as important as the guys generating revenue. Their job is just as important as the guys that are managing the accounts, as the guys that are doing all that. Like, without one, there is no other. Therefore, all should be rewarded.
Think that's some interesting words, especially for people who are looking to make their cash flow business. Essentially, that's what 99% of agencies are.
Yeah,
Actually, make it a profitable business. That's a
yeah,
good idea to align everybody's incentive towards what
yeah.
you want the business to look like. Absolutely.
Again, like, people management can be really confusing, but it doesn't have to be really confusing if you just do the basic stuff right. Like, what is this person actually wanting? The same mantra you should take into your clients' accounts is, what does this person actually want out of us? Do the same thing. And if it's an employee, I can guarantee you the one thing they want out of you is it's cash. That's why they're here. That's what they're doing. Again, everything else, all completely agree with. Good relationship, good place to work, good, fun, engaging work, all has to be there. But the one thing they really want is cash. So just give them it.
There you go. Clients want cash. They want to close leads. And employees want cash. They want to help grow the business.
Yeah.
It's super simple in saying that. It seems like it's not easy to get there. And as you said, like
Oh
it,
no,
it
like,
took
in
you a lot of
reality, it's
hires.
difficult. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy, but on paper, it's really simple, and we should try to keep ourselves on the simple stuff. Simple stuff is easy, measurable, repeatable. It can be done by anybody in any corner of the world with any level of skill. If you keep it simple, they can all meet a fairly common formula to get to the end of that. The reality for somebody operating that business is you've got to be eagle-eyed on your cash flow. You've got to be eagle-eyed on your profit per project. You've got to have a good, strong operations manager to help you run the business and make sure that everything's going as it plans. And you've got to have processes and systems in place that are constantly going to break and need measured and monitored, never mind clients churning and everything else that comes into there. But, it's a lot to manage, but the basics of it are basic, and it is align with what that person wants and give them it.
Amazing. It's as simple as that. Again, like there are some caveats, and as you said, you gotta kiss a couple of frogs before you find the prince. So
Yeah.
as you're saying, just iterate and stick to the basics. I really feel the theme of actually sticking to the basics. Like that's what Hormozy is saying. He's super popular now. That's what
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the other business gurus, like the real ones, are just saying like, look, like it's not complicated. Think of what the other person wants. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well, listen, the other guys that are there, they want it to sound really, really convoluted and really difficult to figure
yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
because that's how you sell an £8,000 course at the back of it. But I don't have any of that to go, right? For me, it's just, if you keep it simple, you can remember how it all works, you can operate it, and you can teach somebody else to operate it quickly. And that's the name of the
Yeah.
game.
Finish with a quote that's at the back of my head. Don't remember exactly by whom, but they muddy the water to make it seem deep.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
yes. Yeah, and like I say,
just
don't anybody
keep
take
it
this as me
clear.
telling you this is an easy life. Like, it's not. It's a really
No,
difficult
no.
thing to do. It's not. It doesn't happen to everybody. Your mileage will vary. You'll have loads of different things in there, but the fundamentals are the fundamentals for a reason. Stick to them and keep pushing, and you're very likely to get an element of the success out the back of that. And then whatever led you there, just repeat that, and that's where you'll find the golden stuff.
Very good. So we went at the very bottom of the funnel to the very core that everything spans out of. Now let's zoom all the way up. And I'm going to ask you, because one of the reasons why we actually started chatting is you're generating a lot of leads through Perspective funnels. So we started in our system and we're like, hey, what is this guy doing that other people could learn from to actually generate more leads for
Yeah.
themselves?
I think it goes back, and this is going to sound really simple again. It's not meant to be, because it's not actually really simple. Just give the customer what they want. If you are like, if like, let me put it in your perspective, okay? Leon, you have a roof over the house you live in, right?
Of course.
And that roof starts to leak. What's the first thing you're going to think about? Is going to be the cost, right? It's the first thing that hits your
Yeah.
mind
And
is
how
the expenses,
fast I can fix it.
and how fast can I get that, right? So if we can give you a cost really quickly and we can do it really fast, you would become a lead,
Yeah,
right?
I would for
And
sure.
there you go. Give the customer a cost really quickly. And if that cost isn't accurate, it's got to be within a ballpark to be relatively accurate. Because you have to remember, right, the people who are looking at these things, they are coming from a place of anxiety. It's how long will this take? How much is this going to cost? Typically, for even people who are planning large scale home improvements, the first thing to think of is cost. What's it going to cost me? How much is it going to cost me to get there? Now, that means that you get into that individual at the bit where they're factoring the cost. That means that you are going to have a number of objections to overcome, a number of things to deal with from an appointment booking and a sales point of view, to get into there. But what a lot of people don't realize is that those leads convert really great, and they convert extremely cheaply. So we are talking about, £2, £3, $4, $5 a lead in home improvements, which, anybody who knows anything about home improvement lead generation, you're not going to be there. You'll be somewhere around about £25 to £45 per lead if you're running kind of direct lead generation ads on Meta. If you're running that in the States, you're going to be 45 to 60 to get that into there. One of the big things that Kindling can do that other agencies can't is we can generate an excruciating amount of volume of leads. And one of the things that we often have to do with our clients is make sure that we put them onto the right model, because different models of lead generation consist with different volumes of leads. So whether you come to me and say, I want to spend £1,000 this month, that might mean 100 leads and it might mean 30 leads, right? And the end goal could be similar, and the end goal could be in there. But how we process that data and how we help our clients process that data into appointments, into sales, is the bit that we've got to figure out in there. Does the client want more high volume stuff, i.e. have they got an appointment booking team in place in that office that are trained, that have a great skill set, that if they got a slightly weaker lead that's a bit earlier in the process, can they still get that to sit? And if they can get that to sit, how do their sales guys do? can they convert leads that are still early in the process? Can they use things like finance and other kind of pay monthly pieces to avoid things, avoid budgets being constrained, and all of these things that kind of come into there. So as we work through our lead generation model with our clients, it's about picking the right thing for them, because different lead generation funnels can produce different results, and it's not always about the lowest cost per lead to get the highest volume out of that. That's a mistake we made very early on, and we didn't see any revenue off the back of that because we didn't get commission, because they couldn't keep up with the volume leads coming in. They couldn't actually get to see them. They couldn't do the sales process that comes behind that. So for us, lead generation is about giving the client something that they want, and in in return for that, they give us their data. That is the very, very basic level of it. So if the first thing they're thinking of is a price and how quickly can we get it, if I can offer you an instant online guide price in 20 seconds, there's a very good chance you're going to go through that and give me your data. And that means we get cheap leads at a high volume that we can then funnel through to our clients who have got these teams in place that can convert them into significant amounts of revenue from a relatively low ad spend. So for a couple of examples on that, there is a chap that's one of our case studies, a guy called Paul England, who lives in Wales, which is slightly strange for his surname. He runs a windows and doors company. He started with us in about June, July this year, his first kind of move at digital advertising for the business. In the last kind of 4 or 5 months, he's now brought on a whole other sales rep, a couple of more fitting teams. He's only spending around about £1,000 to £1,500 a month on his ads, and he's consistently generating between £80,000 and £100,000 in sales, net of VAT. So if you want to spice that up a bit and include the VAT on there, you're
Right,
talking
right.
100 to 120k in sales, out of that £1,000 invested. So we constantly see him, even in relatively bad weeks, sitting at a 60, 62 times return on his cash that's going into there, which is just unbelievable for that to exist. But picking that right model for the right client and giving their customers the thing that they want the most. They don't want to sit in a house for 2 hours with some sweaty sales rep who's not going to give them a price until they sign a contract or get to a point where there's two of them in the property, right? They don't want to do that. We don't buy things like it's the 80s anymore. We buy things like it's 2025, and we have technology to help us do this. So with our stuff, I say it's about picking the right thing, but the fundamentals are giving the customer the thing that they want. If they are not going to go down that road and they're looking for something different, that could quite easily be something around, I want to trust the person. Are they going to turn up on time? Are they going to do it at a fair price? Do they have finance available? And if we're going to run a kind of direct lead to appointment funnel, which would be something more around those elements of it, how do we immediately in the first 10 seconds of the video we run for that communicate that exact thing to the client for them? And that means that our direct lead to appointment funnels run at 22 to 24 pounds in most cases, which is still dirt cheap, because you're talking about a 60-70% conversion lead to appointment on that stuff. So you're running at a cost of 35 to 40 pounds, or around about $50, for a pitch, for to sit there and actually pitch someone. That's outrageous. If you're buying that from any of the kind of big appointment setting agencies in the UK for the exact thing, you're going to be paying between £250 and £300 to get that pitch. But if you just tie it together and you have the right bits inside there and the right partners, you can achieve that for a cost that's, 6 or 7 times lower than what you could be doing it elsewhere. And that's where the kind of funnel system behind lead generation, too many people get hung up on how quickly can I get somebody to fill out a form. Just give them the things they want. Give them what they actually want, and they will give you their data without any shadow of a doubt.
Cam, we're gonna roll up the podcast, but before we finish it up, is there anything else that I would like to say to our audience beyond
Uh,
keeping it simple?
Yeah, I think that's it, right? That's probably the way to end this. Is the same thing we've carried on throughout it. Is keep it simple. Like, stop overcomplicating everything. Every bit of advice you receive is not good advice. You have got where you are so far by probably trusting your gut, um, and
Valid.
rely on yourself a little bit. This stuff is not easy. This is brutal. Like, some days there is nothing more I want to do than literally bury my head in the sand and turn my phone away and get away from it, right? And I think a lot of people in my position would tell you something different. That it's great now, and we have lots of things, and we've got lots of money floating around. But if you're doing it properly, you've probably not, and you're trying to really build this thing and secure it and do it. Trust yourself. Keep it simple. If you do anything else, you're going to confuse it. And the whole reason that they've got here is probably because they're quite good at what they do. So make sure you're keeping that as the cart of what it is. And if you're trying to scale it, stop making it complicated. Make it simple. And don't trust the 100% commission says. based salespeople, basically. It's the final footnote on that, if I'm being honest with you, Leon. That's where we are. Don't
There
be
it
afraid to
is.
spend the cash and get the right stuff in place.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Cameron Taylor, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Thanks for watching this episode of Perspective Talk. If you want to learn more from our guests, you can go directly to our Skool community, link in the description below, and you'll be able to ask them questions and suggest who the next guest of our podcast should be. I'll see you there.